Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast, where we focus on creating positive, productive, and profitable workplaces. I am your host, Michael Sherlock. I am a leadership and sales expert, best known for being serious about business, despite what you may think by my appearance of often very colorful hair and sometimes crazy shoes. My guests bring a wealth of information that will support your career and your business, along with many pearls of wisdom to support balance in your personal and professional lives. Listen in as I have another amazing conversation with a guest who will certainly shock your potential. Laura Templeton is the founder and chief instigator, I love that title, at 30-Second Success. Now, what does that mean? It's a company that helps coaches, consultants, and service providers make better connections. You know, we talk about that a lot, and obtain more business, which we all want, and get this 30 seconds or less. You might have gotten that from her title, though. As a global speaker, author of 30-Second Success, Ditch the Pitch and Start Connecting, and also as a brand communications consultant, Laura educates in-person and virtual audiences on value-based communications. Oh my gosh, what? We're going to bring the values to the heart of this? Yes, and if we do, it takes your creativity to the next level, helps you to step into and own, as well as share your brilliance with confidence. And we all need a little boost of that now and then. Joining us today, Laura, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a lot of fun to be here today with you.
It is, and it's also fun to have you here because you are also a part of your Shock Your Potential bookstore. In fact, you have been currently, or just most recently, the author of the month with us, which is fantastic, and I can't wait to learn more about you. I hit the highlights of your bio, but tell us a little bit more about you, your business, and how what you do helps people to shock their potential.
Thank you so much for that invitation. I really appreciate it. Yes, 30-Second Success. I launched this business about 7 years ago. It was an opportunity that I saw within my networking community to help people figure out that 30-second message, because I had learned in my past, all the past lives that we have, right? All the different experiences that we bring, to our current work that we do, that there was a simple formula that I could use and figured out very early on how to use that for myself and then teach it to other people. And word got out that I was teaching people how to do the 30-second message. So then I started getting requests to do, to speak to other groups. Luckily for me, I really geek out on being on stage. I just absolutely eat up the energy of the audience being on stage. And yes, introverted personality here. So I somehow, some way, I went from being, nervous Nelly, getting on stage, to absolutely loving it and teaching people how to change their mindset around that 30-second connection piece.
Well, and so many things about what you said just really resonated with me. And one of the first thoughts I had is that I've always hated the description of the elevator pitch, because number one, what are you going to do? Just, corner somebody in the elevator to pitch to them. And then that second word is that pitch, because it's so one-sided to say, here's my story, but I want you to listen to it because I want you to do business with me. And I've always felt more along the lines of, when you talk about value-based, really taking the time to say, what message do I really want to get out there? But more importantly, who am I meant to connect with? Those can work together. But I really feel like the elevator pitch takes that whole who you should connect with out of it, because you're just throwing things at people instead of trying to find the right scenario where you're bringing the right things to each other.
And that's exactly where I take people down that, the path of really understanding who your ideal client is, right? Understanding what it is that keeps them awake at night. What's their pain? How do they kind of address the issues that are keeping them from attaining the things that they want, right? And then positioning yourself well to be the solution to that problem. Because when we start positioning ourselves well as taking care of other people, right? We start serving other people. It's not about what we get out of the relationship, it's what we give into the relationship. When we take our focus away from the dollar value and start putting it into the people value and what we're pouring into other people, the return on investment increases tenfold. And, that's when things start to change in your business, in your conversations, in your connections, and how you make people feel. And then people can't help but talk about you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you've met them where they really are, and they want to share that too when they've had a positive return on their emotional energy and their business needs as well.
I was sharing with a friend of mine earlier today. We were talking about, the communications piece and having those sales conversations. I said, well, why are you thinking about it as a sales conversation? Why not just think about it as a conversation?
Right.
And I said, when you're having a conversation, you'll come to a realization where the other person in the room goes, oh my gosh, I need your help. How do I work with you? And it surprises you.
Yeah.
Because you weren't entering the conversation with that particular idea in mind. Yes, that is a conversation that you're hoping to have, and you're hoping to have that invitation to, but that's not your intention when you pick up the phone and engage in that conversation. It's really about understanding who they are, where they're at, how you can help, what you can offer them, whether there's an exchange of money or not. And that's when they usually want to go deeper with you.
And it's interesting. I was just talking about this issue with somebody the other day, because I have a very similar strategy that I work with sales training for organizations, and it's about asking more questions. It's about not trying to sell them, but just actually see whether or not it's a good fit. When you have good conversations with people and they share their pain, and that you can solve their pain point, and they've identified that they'd like you, but they have not signed on the dotted line for whatever way that is, then you still owe it to them to continue to communicate. Not to say, hey, have you made a decision about that, proposal I sent you? But hey, just touching base, how are you doing today? What else is what's the pain point today? Connecting with them on LinkedIn, where you like or comment on one of their posts, something that you keep engagement, because then they know you're there. When you keep that connection, that's when somebody will say to me, I loved your proposal. I really want to work with you. I really want to do this, but I hit a roadblock in my company. And I say, great, let's talk about it. How can we help? How can I help you get past that roadblock? If you know you need me and you want to work with me, let's talk honestly about it, because then we're still trying to figure out how we can find positive solutions.
Right. And sometimes you're not always the solution.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be willing to accept that, because I think we're all meant to work with the people that we were meant to work with. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's an opportunity for you to listen when you're asking the right questions. Is this person the right fit for me? Am I the right fit for them? More importantly, if I'm not, is there someone in my Rolodex, in my community, in my network that is a good fit for them? And how do I connect them?
Yeah. Amen to that.
And, a lot of times opportunities come around after the fact, right? Now might not be the best time for you to work with someone. Maybe they need to work with someone else first, but they will appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah. And we don't know unless we're communicating, and not with the outcome that you think you want is the only positive solution. Sometimes just those relationships are so powerful and bring you other great connections, other great stories, other great referrals. Might buy your book. I mean, there's so many different ways to measure success. I want to know a little bit more about your book. So tell us a little bit about your author journey.
So my author journey is very interesting, because for a long time, I kept hearing myself say, oh, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. And I finally, one of my friends who is an accountability partner for me too, she goes, okay, are you tired of hearing yourself? Because I am tired of hearing you say I'm writing my book. And I really do believe that there's always the right time for you to finally sit down and write it. And I did. And the purpose of my book was really to help get the message out there regarding how to craft your 30-second message in a very simple way. But the component and the real value in my book is not just how to write your message. It's how to create those connections, how to go deeper into relationships, how to build referral partners, and how networking as part of your marketing strategy changes everything. Mm-hmm. Networking is one of the most beautiful relationship models I've ever seen in my life, because people when it's done right, pour into one another. And yes, I've been in some networking environments that are very referral based that kind of didn't go well, and I've learned from them. I've been in others that have been extremely effective in really understanding my business in a way that they were then able to refer me to other opportunities that made a difference in my life. I've made great friendships and watched other people just thrive in those networking communities. And it's been a beautiful experience. And that's what I wanted to be able to provide for entrepreneurs, business owners, consultants, coaches, service providers who are struggling to grow their businesses because I don't want to say they're doing it the wrong way, but they haven't learned how to really make it work for them. And that's what the book is really designed to do.
I'm curious as to your thoughts on two questions as you were talking about this, because number one is we saw so much change with networking during the pandemic. Lots of Zoom calls, lots of different environments that I think had a lot of positives, also a lot of negatives. The second thing that I'm going to throw at you is with the millennial generation, that there is a portion of them, and sometimes a big portion of them, that are not as comfortable with face-to-face interactions in terms of networking because they have been raised in this digital age of text and messages and social media. I see it in a lot. My son's a millennial. I see it on all these people, and I think that there's a challenge to networking. What are your thoughts on those two things?
So it's really interesting. So I launched my book right before the pandemic hit. So
timing.
Yeah, that's the challenge right there. So talk about in-person networking a lot. Luckily for me, I actually put a small blurb in there in my book about how virtual networking is a lot like in-person networking in the fact that you still need to be intentional about the connections that you're making, right? Yeah. So taking those virtual meetings, using the chat well. My experience with virtual networking, which was something that I pushed up against for years, has totally spun on its head because of the pandemic. I love virtual networking. Number one, it has freed up my time. I can actually do more appointments, attend more networking events online because I'm not spending time in the car. I'm not spending as much time with the follow-up because I can actually message people right in the chat and say, okay, here's my calendar. Can you schedule with me? The benefit of virtual has really changed in the way that it also has given me access to a global community.
Absolutely.
I network with people around the world. I'm on calls with people all day long from Denmark and Sweden and Paris. And to be honest with you, I don't want to go back to in-person networking. I'm currently actively working on creating a virtual chapter for Success Champions Networking, which is a local community, but it's a local network, but it still happens within your local community. So you're bringing people together virtually, but it's still a local community. So you have an opportunity to meet one-on-one, face-to-face, and it's a different model. It's a different business model. And I love it because it actually brings that whole teaching component into networking, which I think is so important. Yep. So answering your question about millennials, number one, yes, I'm also a mother of two millennials. So, and what's really interesting, I've even had some conversations with my son. He's a diesel mechanic and he's face-to-face with the public quite frequently. So he's a great communicator in that respect. So he's got good communication skills, which I give my husband and my dad a lot of credit for because, and I'll take some of it too. We've always had him, like, okay, get your face out of the computer, get your face out of the phone and meet people, have conversations with them. But he even talks about how hard it is sometimes to communicate with people and to meet people outside of the social platforms. My advice to people of that generation is align yourself with someone who has more experience, is willing to take you under their wing. There was a young woman that I took to a networking event on the behest of her mother. And she's like, she really is trying to build this business, but she doesn't know anybody in the area and we want to help her grow. And I introduced her to my network and she's a thriving business now. And it's amazing the connection she was able to make. But it was funny because a lot of times we'd be sitting in meetings and she was on her phone.
Oh, yeah.
And when he said to her, "Are you here or are you there?" She said, but I'm answering a question for a client. And he said, "No, you need to be here." And he was very gentle and very kind. And a lot of the folks in my network really kind of took her under their wing, mentored her, because we were seeing the same thing. A lot of young people really have a hard time then connecting with the people that they need to help them grow their businesses. I think they're coming around in that respect, because I think that, again, being virtual and the virtual networking has given them a different experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to take copious notes when I'm sitting in front of someone, whether it's a prospect, whether it's just somebody new from my networks, just so I know what I need to follow up with, what promises I made, what key things that they shared with me that are so important to them that I need to make sure that I am responding to or asking questions about. Sometimes it has nothing to do with business, right? Sometimes it's just, whatever's going on in their life, you have to recognize that.
Yes.
What's important to them, and bringing that to the forefront is so incredibly, it's such an incredible gift to give to someone.
Yeah. Now we're pretty much out of time, but I want to ask you one quick question. What has writing this book meant for you and your business?
Book really solidifies you, especially in the speaker world and in the coaching world. It solidifies you as a credible person, right? It builds that credibility with your audience. It's like, hey, she knows what she's talking about. She's done the research. She's done the work. She's put in the time. I think the credibility is the biggest piece, and it lends such a value to what you're sharing, and it gives people an opportunity to really tap into your brilliance. And frankly, sometimes people may not think that they're ready to work with you one-on-one. So this gives them an opportunity to do some of the work that you would normally do with a one-on-one client, and they can do it on their own. So there's that path that they can choose to take depending on where they're at in their businesses.
Yeah. And I really totally agree with the concept of what you said. It brings your message together. It really helps tighten what you're trying to accomplish and make it succinct so that it's workable for more people. I love it. Well, Laura, we are going to have all of your contact information on our show notes, including link to your book. But just in case somebody's like, I got to find her right now, I'm not going to read the show notes, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The easiest way is either through social media. Everything is branded 30 Second Success, 30, and then spell out the word second and success, and you'll find me anywhere on social media that way. Or go to my website, 30secondsuccess.com.
I love it. And you've already given us a lot of wisdom, but do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
I think the biggest thing that I'd love to share with people is trust yourself. Believe in your abilities to create change, the change that you want, that you can affect in this world, because you were born for greatness. You weren't meant to sit on the sidelines.
I love it. Very inspiring. And I totally agree. Laura, thank you so much for being with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It's been a joy to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.